reform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We quit.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to jump right in where we left off last week. We had a special event at the Patriot Academy campus on what to do about Sharia law. And last week during my Tuesday and Thursday with you, by the way, if you're new to the program, I'm with you on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Walker Wildman with you on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And anyway, last week for Tuesday and Thursday, I shared with you as much as I could of the what to do about Sharia law special event we had at the Patriot Academy campus with some very, very special guests. We had Frank Gaffney, we had Nassar Hassan, Bill Federer, Chris Dunham, myself. We had a big crowd, lots of great questions. And I was just getting into the questions on Thursday when we ran out of time on the program. So we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. I'm actually going to back up just like a minute or so in that evening, just so you can kind of, get caught back up. If you miss those, go to the AFR website. You can listen to the programs from last Tuesday and Thursday for At the Core. But let's jump back in. This is at the Patriot Academy campus. We're located in Constitution City, Texas, just south of Fredericksburg, west of San Antonio. And by the way, if you haven't been to our campus, you need to come visit. Whether you want to come and do a Constitution class or do a handgun defense class or do a legislative simulation that we call Patriot Experience. We got all kinds of cool stuff here. It's literally the Disneyland for Patriots. You can learn more at patriotacademy.com. But for now, let's jump back in and learn more about what to do about Sharia law. When you said that about Eisenhower, how he said you can't hide behind the Bill of Rights in order to destroy the Bill of Rights, that is part of our strategy going forward right there. We've got to get people to understand that we're not going to let them hide behind the First Amendment freedom of religion in order to take away all of our freedoms of religion. That's a very important part of the strategy going ahead. Chris, go ahead.
I'm going to try to ask both Frank and this question. Both of you can take a shot at answering it, because one comes from a convert perspective, the other comes from a policy perspective. One lived and was raised in a country that he saw fall around him. The other fought that our country doesn't go down that path. Western leaders often argue that Islam can be reformed to fit constitutional democracies. Why do you think this assumption is dangerously flawed? Oh, both of you can.
You want me to, Krish? Taqiyya comes to mind. And I'm sure people know the word taqiyya, where a Muslim is sanctioned to lie. He'll lie very happily, very convincingly through his back teeth. Totally convince you. And it's all about advancing the cause of Islam, or preserving one's life, but mostly advancing the cause of Islam. So the Western world has been totally duped by these people. And so the Bible says that my people perish for lack of knowledge. And so we really, really now need to stand up and be counted, actually, and you need to fight back, because you're not going to have a country for your children and their children's children. Did I answer that, Christian?
The fact that when we say to ourselves that, yes, can we not be nice? There are moderate Muslims, and should we not tolerate them? And we go down that path. If they're given the edict that they can lie, as he pointed out, and truth by nature is exclusive. There is no your truth and my truth. We cannot just come up with different truths. So the very concept that you're allowed to lie. And actually, he brings up a bigger point, which is vocabulary has been changed. Frank, you have seen this during our time. We have gone, the biblical thing is mercy. None of us deserves judgment. So we're really glad we have God's mercy. Now, because they wanted to jettison God out of it, as Bill pointed out, replace it with some LGBTQ identity, and then now this. What do we call it? Social justice. They make the words sound better. And if you can lie to start with, and then you can change vocabulary, and we're not going to do anything before long, we don't have a language or we don't have a cause.
I'm reminded of a statement that was made by Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who is the now, I guess, caliph of Turkey, or aspiring caliph anyway. And he said at one point, there is no radical Islam. There is no moderate Islam. Islam is Islam. That's it. And I think we can chase around in the hope that there are people who are going to practice their faith in a moderate way, and that would somehow constitute a sufficiently significant body of Muslims to have it be a different kind of religion than it is. But again, it goes back to what I said in my remarks. There is a term for those good Muslims. They're apostates. They're walking dead men and women. And it's ultimately why there is no reform possible, because they will be killed if they put their head above the parapet. And I'm personally of the view that probably in this country there are significant numbers of Muslims who really don't want to go along with this Sharia program, who may even have come here to get away from that program. But again, they understand, and I in one of our earlier conversations with Neil and Nisar, I think it was Neil was saying that, friends of the Muslim moderate notion wanted Nisar to come and speak to the prospective moderate Muslims to emulate, that faith, or better yet, leave it. And here you have a guy who's had his knee broken and his hand in, vice for some period of time, testifying to them that you should follow me. Be like me. Not a good sell, needless to say. And I think that we're deluding ourselves to think that unless and until Sharia is banned in the United States of America, and people who don't want to live under it can walk away from it, or practice their faith in a way that is absolutely prohibited by it, we're not going to see any real reform.
I'd like to throw in one thing. 1600s, the Dutch take over Indonesia. And whenever a Muslim imam would speak out, stirring up violence against the Dutch, they would arrest the imam and imprison him. And another imam would speak out against the Dutch, and they would arrest him and imprison him, until pretty soon the imam said, let's not speak about stirring up people to kill the Dutch. And it turned into a more moderate version of Islam for 3 centuries. And then when they got their independence, now the fundamental ones are going in there and trying to stir them up again. But it's a software problem, not a hardware problem. It's not the Muslim person, it's the Sharia teaching. It's and the Muslim congregation, so to speak, are sheep, and it's the imam that is the one that decides what's acceptable, what's not. What Muhammad permitted is permitted. It's called halal. What Muhammad did not permit is not permitted. Is called haram. Muhammad liked cats. They are halal. Muhammad did not like dogs. They are haram. So Sharia law is a long list of halals and harams. It's do's and don'ts, and it's the local imam that keeps the list. And it's like, well, why is that haram? I'm sorry, you can't ask. But I really want to know, why is that haram? I'm sorry, if you ask again, I'll kill you for doubting Islam. You just obey. So most Muslims don't even know what we've talked about tonight. They just obey, especially the women. Most of Sharia law is dealing with how to treat women as second-class citizens. They can't leave the house without a Muslim male relative accompanying them. They can't leave the house without the husband's permission. They cannot show their hair. If they get raped, it's their fault for looking attractive and attracting the man that raped them. And so the woman gets whipped 100 times for having been raped.
As we segue, I just, sir, you will appreciate one of my dear friends who passed away way too young was Nabil Qureshi. I served with him as an adjunct, and we traveled all over the world together. But Nabil wrote the best-selling book, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. When I asked Nabil, why did it, now that you're an apologist for the gospel, why did it take you so long to embrace? You studied the Quran, you studied the Bible. He says, David kept saying, you want to hear the good news. And I thought, what kind of good news is this? I have to give up my family. I have to give up everything I know and believe, and I might get killed. And sound too good to me. So that was...
By the way, if y'all are wondering, and I don't know if it was his 30 years with Zig Ziglar or his 2 years here on campus, but the Indian is wearing cowboy boots. I thought it was worth pointing out. He opened the wedding of my oldest son. He did the wedding. He opened the wedding saying, with all these cowboys, y'all obviously needed an Indian. It was great. It was a good line. It was a good line. Okay, we got about 15 minutes left. We'll take a few more questions, and we'll have closing remarks, and we'll keep our answers really short to the questions so we can get as many as possible. Go to the back microphone if you want to ask a question. Go. Hit that button on the Christian. Thank you. Get that microphone working. You know how to do it.
Check 1, 2.
There it is.
Hey, thank you so much. This is amazing. Thank you so much for your courage too, sir, for being here tonight. I'm Roger, retired Air Force, and I understand strategic, tactical, operational strategies. I would love to know more with what the plan is. How can we get busy?
Yeah.
That's really what matters to me. I mean, I'm,
right.
trying
Well,
to...
remember what I started with tonight? I said this is going to be the opening conversation.
Yes.
We're going to need to do a lot more of this, and the action items initially are what Frank was talking about. Let's make sure we knock it out of the park with this Prop 10, because what that'll do is it'll create momentum for our legislators in January, and it puts pressure on at least the Republican politicians in Texas to do more and to take this fight seriously. But we have a public relations fight to fight first. We have to educate people on why this is such an issue. I guarantee you, when you get back home or you go have your first conversation about what you learned tonight, most people are going to be dismissive and be like, can't we just all get along? And why don't they have a right to live out their religion any more than we Christians have the right to live out our religion? You're going to hear that over and over and over again. And that's why this is so important, and why all these guys go and do media constantly. It's going to take time to even get people to realize there's a problem before the solutions and the tactics that we can implement at that point are actually going to matter. But I will defer this one to Frank.
Well, just real quick, I mentioned in the slides, bansharia.com. It's a resource. It will give you a lot of information about the problem of Sharia, the threat that it represents, and what we must do about it. It also gives you options for, volunteering, for, getting speakers to come to your place to help educate, and not least to mobilize people in your circles of influence, in your community, in the county you live in the state, to go to the polls on or before March 3rd and vote for that Proposition 10. Yes, ban Sharia in Texas.
And start hosting constitutional law, biblical citizenship, and rebuilding liberty in your homes, at your churches, in your communities. We're going to be adding some of what we did tonight and what these guys are going to do tomorrow morning. We're going to be adding some of that to the Rebuilding Liberty course. So there's something about getting together with other people in your home or your church and doing one of those classes, and by the end of the class, they're ready to go get involved in the types of things that Frank is talking about. It's absolutely essential. And by the way, another product I want to mention in terms of a recording is David Barton's recording on America's First War on Radical Islamic Terrorism. Because most people don't even realize we fought this once before. It took 32 years, and it was Washington was dealing with it, Adams was dealing with it, Jefferson's the one that finally sent in the Marines, and that's why you Marines in the room have "To the Shores of Tripoli" in your Marine Corps hymn. At any rate, it's not the first time. We're gonna it's gonna take time, and it's gonna be a generation to win it. But to the action items, we'll get more and more of them. Go ahead, Frank.
Can I just add one further point?
Actually, hold that thought. We will get Frank's comment there when we come back from the break. You are listening to a presentation at the Patriot Academy campus, What to Do About Sharia Law. Frank Gaffney, Nassar Hassan, Bill Federer, Rick Green, myself, and Chris Dunham. Phenomenal evening. A lot of people shocked at what we learned, and I wanted to share with you, our audience here on At the Core. We'll be right back. You're listening to At the Core with Walker Wobben and Rick Green.
At the Core podcasts are available at afr.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
We're back here on At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution coach. Jumping right back in our presentation at the Patriot Academy campus called What to Do About Sharia Law. In the first segment, we were catching up. By the way, if you just tuned in, found us in the middle of the program, we aired the first part of this program last week on Tuesday and Thursday. You can get that at our AFR radio website right now under At the Core and our archived programs from last week. But this is really important information. I mean, this is the battle that we're going to be fighting for the next few years. And these are subject matter experts: Frank Gaffney, Nassar Hassan, Bill Federer, Chris Dunham. It's just incredible. So we're going to jump back in, and we're just kind of getting into the Q&A, and Frank Gaffney was about to comment. Let's go right back into what to do about Sharia law.
I personally think that as important as anything in this 3-week window or so is an audience that I suspect is represented here, but mostly probably going to be watching this on some other platform. And that's this extraordinary army of Constitution coaches that Rick Green and this institution have mobilized for a time such as this.
Frank, we even have coaches from California
working the problem. 8,000 here, I'm told, right here in Texas. That's a good start. Let's mobilize them.
Amen.
Well, you know, I'm just really amazed because when I think back how this, not just how it infiltrated, but I often use that term ISD, infiltrate, which I really love, saturate and dominate, because that's what it's been doing. You know, but the most powerful entity, I think, on the planet is the church. What can the church actually do? I mean, I know we have our nice services and, and our pies and whatever else that we do, but that we're so lax from that. And race is always at the top of the list, and now that I think that black people are thrown under the bus because they're not needed anymore. And the useful idiots that the different segments of our society, this whole Sharia law thing, I think that it is imperative that we act now.
Yeah.
We do something and not just talk about it.
I was thinking about what you're asking when Bill was going through that history, because it was clear, as you were saying, the church receded, and when the church was wimpy and wasn't willing to engage, it opened the door for Islam.
And I was, even though I'm a Texan, got here as fast as I could in the 90s, but I was raised in the inner city of Detroit. And I remember Dearborn was a place that not only black people couldn't walk through, poor whites couldn't walk through. I remember that. That's how tight it was in there. They had it down. They had it tight. But now, no one can go through there. If you don't believe in Sharia law, if you're not a part of it, I mean, everybody walks around with closed mouths. They can't even talk about it anymore. Dearborn is actually ran and owned by them now. And it's only a matter of time. Would you say?
And that too, Nassar, is basically the no-go zones in the UK, right?
Yes.
Essentially so they've bowed the knee, actually. And so we have a situation now for some years. They don't do Christmas in majority Muslim schools. What they call it, season tree or something ridiculous. So they don't, because they don't want to offend Muslim pupils or and such like. So it's vitally important that you hold on to your Judeo-Christian values and not be ashamed of this thing. And they have to accept the Judeo-Christianity of America, and they really have to be put in their place.
We have to go from being, as a church, so sweet, to finally being salty.
Yes.
We're supposed to be salt and light,
and isn't Denmark,
not sugar and light.
And isn't Denmark one of the countries that is saying 3 things? Number 1, you come, you work, you learn our values, and you speak our language, or you leave.
It's only fairly...
Does that work?
Yeah, it's only fairly recently there's some element of fight back.
Yes, it is.
But you really wonder, is it far too little too late?
It's never too late.
It's never too late, but I agree. But actually they're so emboldened. Yeah. They're so steeped into politics because the Europeans and the English don't want to vote, don't want to get off their chair. It's a political ideology, right?
Yes.
And they're doing the opposite of Christians. Christians are saying we shouldn't get involved in that arena. They're saying we'll take that arena.
And you know what they're saying? We're going to use your miserable laws against you.
That's right. That's what
You
they're
know,
doing.
so
Thank you.
yeah. And by the way, in our case, not only 4 bishops, Anglican bishops, but the Archbishop Justin Welby, 15 months prior to my attack, while I was talking to Bishop Josiah, the head of the Worldwide African Church, GAFCON, he came on the podium from nowhere, rudely interrupted the conversation. He pulled this man away from me. I suppose reputation must exceed me. He surmised I was talking about our personal problems. And as he started walking away, I said, Mr. Welby, would you give me 2 minutes, because we're in a life and death situation. We've been forced out of our first home. We've relocated. We've been brought to our knees, and I fear for our lives. He dismissed me with contempt. As God is my witness, as the Lord God liveth, he dismissed me with contempt, pulled this chap, he carried on walking. The black bishop, he was gobsmacked. He couldn't even get his words out, because I told him 4 bishops had failed us.
Thank you.
This godless man was at the prayer breakfast. I missed him by about a few minutes. My colleague Neil, when I sat at the supper table, he said, Justin Welby was there. And I said, where? Believe you me, had I seen him, I would have had some strong words. He's obviously had to resign in disgrace because he protected a paedophile Christian barrister who he had known for many years, a very sadistic chap.
Thank you.
This is your Christian leaders.
These are our Christian leaders, and now we have...
Elisha, you can go ahead and take that
and
drum
as
shot
it starts with, as it started with the church, I really believe it begins and it ends with the church.
It starts with the house of God.
Yes, I do.
Let me give you just some good news, and then Frank, you get to address this. But you know, Bill and I, we're working with Charlie doing pastors' conferences all over the country, and a lot of y'all have been through biblical citizenship. We do this thing called Liberty Pastors with a guy named Paul Blair out of Oklahoma. So yes, good things do come from Oklahoma. It's just rare. And so we are sorry, Texan. I can't help it. But what we're doing is training pastors to fight this fight and the cultural fight and get them off of this sweet thing and get into being salt and light again. And we're talking thousands of pastors. Now, granted, there's 400,000 churches in America, so we got a long way to go. But I'm just telling you, there are a lot of pastors waking up to this and stepping in. They're too few, and we got to grow it. Frank?
Well, and I was just going to say that I've mentioned the force multipliers that the constitutional coach team represent. Another one, which we're going to try to, with your help, Rick, next week, activate for this vote on the 3rd of March is pastors. And if you've got a pastor who you'd like to have get trained, get experience and exposed to the kind of information that we're talking about here tonight, please get in touch with Rick and his team, and we'll make sure they get the invitation. Thank you. Happens to be a pastor sitting down over there. Pastor Greg.
Yes, brother.
God bless you.
God bless you all. Good to be here tonight.
Sir, before you, in the interest of making sure that we end on time, we'll stick around and you guys can come and talk to us later, but go ahead and ask your question.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, so just want to make sure that...
8 o'clock. We'll be in here for...
One of the... I'll try to be short. It's hard for a pastor, but I'll do my best. One of the questions that was asked tonight was regarding all of the quote-unquote moderates. And I know you guys know Paul Sutliff, who's written quite extensively about that. But we didn't talk about civilization jihad. And I thought perhaps that might be an important topic briefly to cover. And then relative to the church, as my sister Lorraine suggested, the failure of the Christian church in America to maintain its moral compass has led to the rise of Islam. I don't know if any of you know about Andrew Tate, but Andrew Tate was a Christian. Andrew Tate states clearly he converted to Islam because of the failure of the church. When I first started my program here 14 years ago, there were youth pastors all across the country who were renouncing Christianity because of the fact that they couldn't find a church that would hold to what they considered to be a moral value, particularly on the issue of LGBTQ.
Well, I'm going to take this question on the church, being a latecomer to Christ and having observed it and preached all over the world in different sanctuaries. I'll revert to what Billy Sunday did and what our pastors don't do. Billy Sunday, of course, was that he was a great, outstanding baseball player, gave up a career of $3,000 a year back then to play for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and started the Evangelical Association. If you follow that thread, it leads to Mordecai Ham and Billy Graham. But Billy Sunday went into one small town, and there was a man in that town who was an influencer. But he was an angry drunk who had become angry with God. And because he was angry with God, he refused to go to church. And many of the people came to Billy and said, Billy, if John, who works at the mill, comes to church this evening, and if by chance he gives his life to Christ, everybody in that mill will follow. So Billy said, let's go see him. And he walked up to John, who was sitting on his porch angry at God. And Billy looked, and the dog was barking. And Billy looked at John and said, would you be okay if I slapped your wife because your dog's barking? He says, don't be angry at God because you're mad at the church. First thing, we need to get that out of our system. I remember one preacher telling me, he says, I know you're controversial, but can you tone it down? Because our job is to fill the pews. I said, no, our job is to fill the pulpit. I'm a motivational speaker. If you're not speaking hellfire and brimstone from the thing, you're just a motivational speaker like me. All right? We better tell the truth. And here's how we can do it at a secular level. Again, as an immigrant, I was invited to Concord, Massachusetts. Quite famous. They heard some things there that changed the fate of this nation. But they had watched my YouTube clip 3 days before I arrived and said, can you not mention God? Can you not mention politics? And can you not maintain something? They had 3 different edicts for me, Rotary Club. And I looked at them and I thought to myself, without those 3 things, what am I? I'm a Christian evangelist. I have a global ministry. If I'm not going to talk about God, and I'm not going to talk about society, and I'm not going to talk about politics, I should quit my ministry. So I stood up in front of them and said, I'm just a dumb immigrant. I heard some of your founding fathers from this area. Would you mind if I quoted one of them? And I'll close with this. 500 people in the audience. I said, if we and our posterity reject religious instruction and authority, violate the principles of eternal ethics, trifle on moral injunction, and recklessly destroy the political constitution that upholds us, no man can say how sudden the catastrophe that will overwhelm us and bury all our glory in profound obscurity. Thus spake Daniel Webster. And the crowd erupted. This 80-year-old codger who had invited me said, you violated all my rules. But he said, you did it with immunity. I said, yeah, it's called the First Amendment. If a dumb immigrant like me can figure it out, what's stopping all of us from saving this beautiful nation?
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to let these 3 guys each have a 60-second close. I'm going to send you home. All the people online are saying, give us 3 steps. I'm going to give you those 3 steps right now. Number 1, vote in this primary if you're in Texas. Number 2, call your congressman. And this is going to sound weird to be a part of this tonight, but call your congressman and your senator and tell them to vote out the SAVE Act so that all of these illegal immigrants cannot vote in the upcoming election this year. And number 3, host a Rebuilding Liberty class in your home so that you can start building a little army of patriots that will take action as we develop the game plan and more action steps for you, okay? Vote March 3rd. Call your congressman. Tell them to vote the SAVE Act. And 3, start a Rebuilding Liberty class. Elisha, you want to do your drone shot before I let them close so we don't lose everybody? We just want to get a nice drone shot, and if it lands on somebody's head and takes your ear off, I'm sorry. Okay, as he's getting in position, Frank, you go ahead and do your 60-second close. The mic drop will be the drone drop.
Carefully. Civilization jihad was mentioned by my friend Pastor Greg Young. That's a phrase that I think probably manifests itself in lots of places, but one place in particular that's a God thing is it was found in a secret sub-basement in Annandale, Virginia, in a book that turned out to be the playbook of the Muslim Brotherhood that the FBI only found because of a traffic stop on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Because an alert police officer noticed that a gal was taking pictures as her husband drove them across the bridge, only she was taking pictures of the structural supports of the bridge, and the cop thought, that's probably not good. She was also wearing a full burqa. The point is, civilization jihad, according to Muhammad Akram, one of the top Muslim Brotherhood operatives in the United States at the time, in 1991 described the mission of the Muslim Brotherhood as a kind of civilization jihad in destroying Western civilization from within by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Ladies and gentlemen, that was 1991. That was a secret document. It wasn't meant for our attention. Today, in Texas, you have imams saying the same thing from their pulpits in their mosques, whatever. They're saying it in the streets as their congregants pour over into public spaces. And they are domineering and increasingly confident that they will succeed, as Akram put it, in sabotaging our miserable house until Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions, unless we stop them.
And that's our job. That's our goal, to stop them. Quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to At the Core with Walker Waldman and Richard.
At the Core podcasts are available at afr.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
We're back here on At the Core with Walker Waldman and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks for staying with us. Jumping right back in, we got the conclusion of our presentation on what to do about Sharia law. Frank Gaffney, Nassar Hassan, Chris Dunham, Bill Federer, and myself, Rick Green. Let's jump back in.
That's why we're here. That's why I believe you're here. And that's why we need you to be all over Texas in the next 3 weeks, spreading the word. March 3rd, vote Prop 10, ban Sharia in Texas. Thank you.
Frank. Nassar?
Yeah, in closing, I would just say that actually, whether it's English politeness and kindness, or whether it's American politeness and kindness, this has been taken full advantage of. And we discussed about the church. And I forgot to say that in my case, the Archbishop, Justin Welby, for the sake of interfaith ecumenicalism, Muslim dialogue and friendship. So it starts, justice starts from judgment starts from the house of God. And you know, the church has lost its way, and it really needs to rediscover itself. Love on these people, but be robust, be strong in your faith. Pray for them, because when you think of the females in their burqa and the hijab, they can't help it. It's they're under the misogynistic control of the males, whether it's a husband, father, brother, you know. And so one has to really feel sorry for them. But there's also this political dimension. And they are taking away your freedoms under your noses. And you really, really need to wake up. And so lots been said. Honestly, I've learned so much from Bill and from Krish, actually. So, but I love Western values. I've lost my brothers, sisters. Look, my mother died last year, November of 2024. I just got a simple text. Mother's passed. I've been estranged for 35 years. My father died in 2011. They didn't even inform me. it was my wife's family abroad who phoned me to offer condolences. And I said, it was my mother-in-law. She's passed, God bless her. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you don't know? And I said, no. She said, your father's passed. So I had to go in a mosque in Birmingham, travel 3 hours to go. I think it's a human thing just to see him in the casket and come away. They didn't even want me to come to the mosque because I'm going to defile them and, I'm not fit to even enter the mosque. I went along anyway. I just put myself in God's hands and was able to bury my mother the following day with all my relatives and who didn't particularly bother with me. So the Lord said, any man that puts his hand to the plow, looks back, is not fit for the kingdom of heaven. And I've come too far in my Christian walk, And so my utmost desire is for this amazing, great country to really start the fight, stand up, reclaim your freedoms, your liberties. Because if America falls, it's over, brother. It's over. I can tell you that now. It's a long-term plan. The Muslim Brotherhood, 100 years, 50 years, you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to happen if the good American people don't rise up and don't stand against and turn the tide. So my prayer is with you. I've come away. My wife and some of my daughters said, Dad, really? Why do you bother? And they're very valid because we've been terrorized, suffered acts of terrorism. They're still going through trauma. It's taken me 9 years to get this far. If you go on our legalizeapostasy.com website, you'll see a picture with me with Pete Hegseth. He did an interview with me when he was working Fox Nation, November of 2024. Honestly, I look completely different. My hair was falling out. I was in a real mess. It's taken me sort of 8-9 years to, get myself right, and I'm still not there. But by your prayers, I mean to press on. So I'm here to warn you good people and all America is you really, really now need to take this seriously. Otherwise, America is going to slip, and that's it.
We appreciate you being here tonight. These guys drove all the way down from Dallas today to be here with us tonight, driving back tomorrow. Nassar's here for a couple of more weeks to do essentially a tour across the country with Save the Persecuted Christians. God bless you guys. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Bill.
Books. My wife sent cases of books. I don't know if there's one there that you can hold up, but all the history.
And the Flashpoint Army that hasn't gotten their books are really jealous, but we've got a handful in there in the coffee shop.
And they're in the
don't
coffee
leave
shop
tonight without getting you one.
And then I also have my presentations on videos that are on a flash drive. They're MP4 files. You can stick them in your computer and you watch. So I know that you cannot remember everything I talked about, but if you have the book, the paper doesn't forget. You can also email the address in the front of the book and get the book as a PDF file. And then you can forward it on to other people. Deuteronomy 28. Blessings and cursings. If a nation hearkens to the voice of the Lord, they'll be blessed. They'll be head, not the tail, above and not beneath. If a nation does not hearken to the voice of the Lord, they'll be a debtor. America is $49 trillion in debt. We're the most in-debt nation in the world's history. And then it says, if a nation does not hearken to the voice of the Lord, the stranger will come in amongst you and rise up above you, and they will be the head and you will be the tail. They will be above and you will be beneath. How did God judge ancient Israel when they sinned? He let the stranger, the Amalekite, Hittite, Moabite, Edomite, parasite, termite, mosquitoite, all the ites, right? And then when judgment came, they repented, and then God raised up a deliverer. Dead and dying things attract devourers. A dead dog attracts buzzards. A dead bird attracts ants. And a spiritually dead and dying nation attracts devourers to come in and rise up above them. We are under judgment. What do you do when you're under judgment? You repent really fast. And it's like a magnet that's attracting the judgment. If you repent, Jeremiah 18, if I pronounce judgment on a nation, but they repent, it's like flipping the magnet, and it repels the judgment and it attracts God's blessing. And all repentance starts right here with each one of us. And if we really change our heart, it will come out of our mouth and it will come out of our actions. And if we're not going to play a good offense, at least play a good defense. If we're not going to win the world for Christ, at least stand up so that we don't mutilate little kids and we can hand to our children a country with the same freedoms we inherited.
Amen. Amen.
God bless you.
So I really feel like after that I should call the scholars down here to play some praise music, and we should do an altar call. But that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave you with a very quick story that I hope will encourage you, because I'm going to go back to what I started with tonight. This is not going to be a short fight. This is a generational fight. As we already mentioned, first we have to just win the PR part of this to convince people, let alone the strategies and tactics. But even when things are the darkest, we know that God is in charge and that he's got a plan. And so about 4 years before that moment right there, that's the surrender of Yorktown. By the way, if you haven't picked up on the paintings around the room, these 4 right here are from the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. You got the baptism of Pocahontas, embarkation of the Pilgrims, surrender at Yorktown, and Washington's resignation. The reason I have Washington's resignation up front is so that anybody that comes and trains here recognizes servant leadership. He's resigning and going home when he could have been king. King George, the legend says, when he heard that Washington actually went home when he could have been king, that means he must be the greatest man that ever lived. So servant leadership. And then, of course, the Constitution over here. And for you Texans, that's Ben Milam saying who'll go with old Ben to San Antonio and the signing of the Declaration. But here's the one I want you to go home with tonight. 4 years before that moment right there, everything looked very, very bleak. If you go to Christmas of 1776, Washington had gone from 25,000 troops down to 2,500. Most had deserted him. He'd already been defeated by the Hessians, defeated by the British in New York, and he's about to make an impossible decision to cross an icy Delaware River in a snowstorm to take on those very same Hessian soldiers. And if we were to get out of our time machine, if we went back in time, get out of our time machine and go walk among the troops that were freezing there, we would see a young man riding by candlelight these words if we looked over his shoulders, and you'll recognize them. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this present crisis shrink from the present crisis, but he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. And it's Thomas Paine writing An American Crisis. Then he goes on to say that tyranny like hell is not easily conquered. We need to recognize that tonight. This is not going to be easy. But he said, we have this consolation. The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. And here's the real thing I want you to leave here with. We tend to take for granted the freedoms that we have. We have become soft in America. The Muslim is taking over because of our softness. And that's why he said that whenever you don't recognize what the value of things, that you take them for granted, you end up losing them. And we've had it pretty easy. We had people give us this wonderful nation, and we didn't have to fight for it. Most of us in this room, some of you did, but most of us did not. And now all of us have been called to fight. And that's why Thomas Paine was right when he said, heaven knows how to put a proper price on her goods. And he said, freedom is such a valuable thing. Why would it not be valued high? We have not valued freedom like we should have. So I'm asking you to get in the fight tonight. I know we didn't give you a whole lot of specifics to go home with tonight. This is the beginning of the conversation. March 3rd, vote to ban Sharia law in Texas. Secondly, make sure you're calling your congressman. If we don't pass the SAVE Act and make sure that people that are voting have an ID and that they are legal citizens, we cannot save the country. And third, do a Rebuilding Liberty course. Last thing tonight, go get some coffee and get one of Bill's books. He'll probably even sign it for you. God bless you. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
All right, folks, that's it for the presentation on what to do about Sharia law. If you missed any of the programs last week, you can get them at our website at AFR Radio, or you can go to my Facebook page, Patriot Rick Green, on Facebook, and you can watch the video if you prefer to do that. That'd be fine as well. It really is it's an education. I'm telling you, I had so many people that night that were just shocked at what they learned. I was shocked, frankly, at certainly Nassar Hassan's comment that we had less than 5 years to be where London is. And so it's a wake-up call, and so many people from that evening, we're essentially saying, what can we do? What are the action steps? Who are the organization? Which organizations? Who are the people? Who are the leaders? And to be blunt, we're figuring this out. I mean, we're way behind on fighting back against this literal invasion into our culture. And so that's why we did this event, What to Do About Sharia Law. And I'm thankful for the history and the perspective from Bill Federer. In fact, I saw Bill a couple of days ago, and I told him, man, you said so many things that night at the campus for What to Do About Sharia Law that I have stolen from you. I always do the Zig Ziglar thing. And, for instance, the thing that Bill said about, we wouldn't allow MS-13 or Tren de Agua to suddenly be a religion, and then we let them do all the things that they want to do. I said, man, I've totally stolen that from you. So the first time I borrowed it from you and said, my friend Bill Federer says that, Islam is no different than, a gang. We don't let gangs suddenly claim to be a religion and then get to do things that are not compatible with our culture. And then the second time I used it, I said, well, I have a friend that says, and then the third time I said, I've always said. Anyway, that's the old Zig Ziglar joke about how you borrow one-liners or jokes or information from other people. But I love Bill Federer and just a wealth of information there. But anyway, so many people just learning the history from him, getting the strategy from Frank Gaffney. I'll tell you what Frank's doing with Save Texas, Save America is critical. We're in the middle of that voting right now, actually, on this proposition. It's Proposition 10 on the Republican primary ballot. Now, this does not have the force of law. I like to say that it has, it's able to force the law. In other words, when you do something like this, it's essentially a poll of the most active Republicans in Texas that are voting in the Republican primary. And it says to our public servants, everybody says elected officials, I like to say public servants, but it says to our public servants, we want this. We want you to do this. We want you to make sure Sharia law does not happen in Texas. We want you to make sure that Islam is not able to undermine Western civilization and our Constitution. And so it's essentially sending a message through the electoral process to our elected officials. So we have 10 of these propositions on the Republican Party platform, and this is the last one. So we're telling everybody, when you go vote in the Republican primary in Texas for the March 3rd election, this week is early voting, so for a few more days you can early vote. When you go vote, make sure you go all the way down the ballot. Make sure you don't stop and you vote in all those propositions, most of which I'm for. There's one of them that I'm against, but most of them that I'm for. But Prop 10, absolutely vote yes. So important to send this message to our public servants. So I hope people in Texas are listening today. For all of you outside of Texas, I hope this has been educational for you. I hope you've enjoyed learning. We got some great feedback on the programs last week, which is why I decided to go ahead and share the rest of the presentation from that night. If you want to learn more about these things, go to bansharia.com. bansharia.com. That's the way you can help with a specific plan for saving Texas and saving America. If you want to help with Patriot Academy, go to patriotacademy.com. Frank Gaffney now on our faculty. If you'd like to help with that and help us to do more of this education on this particular issue, patriotacademy.com is the place that you can learn more. And obviously, as I said in the program, do a Rebuilding Liberty course. They're free. Go to patriotacademy.com, sign up as a Constitution coach, and start a Rebuilding Liberty course right there in your community. We're out of time. Thanks for listening to At the Core with Walter Wildman and Rick Green.